Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
Welcome to the episode of the Bear Den. My beautiful guest today is my great friend, the President, Mark McCormack. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Matt.
Why President? I don't even know that story. I just call you President Mark McCormack.
Never asked me. Okay, real quick. When I joined Instagram, it was when all the couples that were having a hard time in their marriage would call each other king and queen.
Gotcha.
And so it was kind of like this thing where they were going to like blow their marriage up, right? So they're, oh, my queen, right? It still applies today, right? Any guy that tells their wife that they're the queen, we're on the decline, right? Okay. Now, so then at the time I was also president of a few different companies, right? And that's normally the role I was taking when I was either joining a company or starting one up. Gotcha. And so I just thought, oh, President McCormack would be kind of funny. But it did have some bad connotation to it because people thought either one, I was trying to be president of the church locally here. Ooh, obviously not. Number two was I wanted to be president of the United States. And I want to be that less. I'd actually rather be the prophet before I'd actually be president of the United States.
I could see you being the president of the US. Okay, this house is not going to be white anymore. We're done. Let's change that color.
I like mauve.
Oh, that would be so cool. So the reason this whole podcast, The Bear Den, is to talking about parenting. Okay. I look up to you as one of the greatest fathers that I know.
Oh, thank you.
Truly. Myself and Andrew, we know your family very well. We love you and your kids. We love your wife, Michelle. And honestly, when I think of great fathers, you are one of them. And that's why I wanted you on here. So you've got 3 beautiful kids, Brea, Nixon, and Harper, who I absolutely adore. They are the most fun, loving kids ever. But before we get into you being a father to those kids, talk to me about your upbringing, your parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised by an immigrant father, which I love saying because it's funny nowadays when people...
Immigrants, dude, we get the shit done.
Yeah, you're an immigrant. Yeah. My dad's an immigrant. I'm first generation American. It's kind of fun, right? It's almost like I came over the border, but I didn't really actually.
Yeah, I can't see you walking that far, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't walk that far.
No.
That's way too much. I'll scoot over that thing. No, I mean, I grew up in Highland, Utah. If people understand what that's at, it's very highly concentrated LDS or Mormon population. Super safe, wonderful place to grow up. It was a place where you could ride your bikes to the corner store. It was almost like a little more modern version of the 1950s. Okay. So most people there had 2 parents. A lot of moms stayed home with their kids. A lot of people, were locally religious. And it was actually a beautiful upbringing.
So was that the dynamic for yourself? Was your mom stay at home, kind of, Susie homemaker, baked, cooked, cleaned, and your dad went to work? Is that the dynamic of how you grew up, or were they both working?
No, absolutely that. Okay. Yeah, almost a definition of.
So growing up as a kid, was your dad kind of your idol? He was the kind of go to work, came, got stuff done. Was he kind of, when you were growing up, it was like, when I grow up, I want to be like my dad. I want to do what he does. And
it's an interesting question. I never thought I'd be like my dad growing up. I think my dad was a business owner most of my childhood. He became a business owner when I was 3, is when he started his company. Okay. And but I don't know, in my family, we never really did the like, what do you want to be when you grow up kind of things other than like school, and I wanted to be a pilot or a dentist or whatever, right? I mean, I really didn't have any direction. So, but yeah, growing up, I wouldn't really say, no, I mean, I love my dad and I respected my dad. And, my dad at some level was a hero to me. And, like most young kids, right, they looked up to their father. But I don't ever specifically remember thinking like, oh, I'm going to do exactly what my dad does. I'm going to go work for my dad and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Mostly also because I started working for him at 8 years old. Gotcha. So I was already working at his company. Yeah. I started putting nuts and bolts and washers together at like 8 years old. And I was a janitor. And then I used to make marketing materials for him all the way to full unemployment, working there in the summers. And so I guess I just never looked at it as, I'm going to stay here the rest of my life.
Yeah. Is there things looking back now that you're a father, looking back at what your parents did, that you are grateful for because you've brought it into your parenting lifestyle? Or is there things you look back and go, man, I understand why they did it back then, but hey, I'm doing it completely. I'm dancing to my own beat. So,
That's a good question. There's definitely some things. I mean, we did family vacations to like Lake Powell a lot. Is one of the ones I really remember. Mm-hmm. Those were always super fun. I think my parents always vacationed well. They were always, it was just like super fun. We're always like free to do anything. And like life just always seemed good. I think my parents really instilled in me hard work. You know, you eat what you kill attitude, you know, big time. I mean, that's from both my parents. They also instilled like extended family was important to some level. You know, I had both my grandparents all the way up until I was 19 is when I lost my first grandfather. I still have a grandmother who's 90, and then my other two grandparents lived to 96 and 95.
Wow.
They passed within the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of one of those things where, yeah, family was important and just probably just being an overall good person, honesty, that type of stuff, which in my home now, to answer your question specifically, honesty is like our number one rule in our family, right? I always tell my kids, we can deal with anything as long as you're honest about it, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to instill too, right? You know, even if they've messed up, screwed up, done something, broken something, like just tell the truth. It's you'll be okay. Like I'll be disappointed in you potentially that you've done something wrong at school. I'll be upset that you've broken something in the house, you know, like the Xbox controller or the TV remote or something like that. But it's not as bad as if you lie to me about it. Like
Absolutely.
if you lie to me about it, I'm going to feel even more upset because you lied. And it's actually going to overshadow whatever the first instant was.
Yeah.
Now we're having to deal with you lying versus you breaking something and hiding it from me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like a promise we keep between each other. I have that promise with each one of my kids, and even really my wife too. Like, you know, we live in a world where there's just very few lies. Now, I'm not saying that my kids haven't said lies before and we haven't dealt with that.
Yeah.
And there's also a potential that they've said a lie to me that I never caught on, right? And those are the worst ones, right? Is when you lie to your parents as a teenager or a young adult, right? And then they believe it, and then you get away with it, and you think you can keep on doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I really want my kids to show up in this world in an honest, you know, I take responsibility for my own crap. And I also get to experience the responsibility, the good side of it, when I take responsibility for my own stuff. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I mean, you know, my son one time, I mean, he lied to me. I caught him, you know, we had this huge talk, and I lose my mind when they lie to me, right? It's the only time. And quite frankly, the other stuff, if they break an Xbox controller, I'm like, eh. You know what I mean? I bought them these three electric four-wheelers, you know, I made all these rules, all these things they had to do. They busted them all up within a month or two, and whatever, you know. I'm just not going to sweat that small stuff with them. And to me, it's very important to me that they grew up in a very safe, loving home. And one day the world is going to rain hell on them. And I want them to know that, you know, this is a safe spot.
And that I think that's important. You know, I know your kids really well, and they are beautiful children. Like super loving. You know, I love coming over to your house, coming up to stay with you, and the kids are just like, Uncle Matt. You know, they'll jump on me or they'll hug me. Like every morning when we wake up at your house, the first thing the kids do is like they hug me and say good morning, like, which is beautiful, right? Yeah. And I think what's so beautiful about what you have and what you and Michelle have created is you have a very, very safe home where your children don't feel threatened by you or Michelle for doing something wrong. Yeah. You know, they know like it's okay, it's safe for me to go to mom and dad and say something that either I've done or either I'm feeling or something's been said at school or, you know, in the park. Like they are safe children in your house. Yeah. And that really leads to that trust inside the household, right?
100%, yeah.
Did you have that growing up? Did you have like a safe space with your mom and dad? Like if you got into trouble, you felt safe saying something? Because I'll be honest, I didn't. Like if I screwed up at home, I'm like, oh man, if I own up to this, I'm gonna get a whooping. And it was a level of how big a whooping am I gonna get? Am I gonna get a whooping if I admit to it? I know I'm gonna get a whooping if I lie and get caught. So this lie's got to be really good because I just don't want that whooping. You know.
You know, I mean, if I'm being honest, which I'm always am. Yeah. I hate when people, you know, I get caught in that little saying. I grew up in a safe home. Absolutely. You know, I was never worried about. I mean, I was spanked. I got hit with a water sock. I'm taking a belt. You know what I mean? Which is all fine to me. You know what I mean? I don't look back.
But I also think that's generational of our parents too.
Yeah, I also kind of think we should bring it back. Yeah. Not my generation, but the next one might need it. Someone needed a belt along. No, I was kidding. Yeah. Not really though. Actually, I mean, I think parents have gotten really soft. You know, and I think the key to being a parent is pick your battles. Pick the things that really matter to you. Like there's some very well thought out things that we do in our home. You know, all the way down to being homeschooled. You know, homeschooling our children. You know, as parents, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, you have to be in harmony with your spouse. That's one of the other bigger things, right? And I think growing up in my home, my parents definitely had harmony with each other growing up. And then, but you know, I definitely lied to my parents. You know,
I think,
and there was things
I think every kid has.
Yeah,
I think every kid has, and every kid does, and every kid will. There's a little white lie that they'll get away with, and you can tell straight away. Like, are you lying to me? And they're like, well, not lying, but it kind of didn't happen like that. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the problems with my parents and most parents in general. I don't think they're special in this. Is their overreaction causes you to either allow them to run down the road of something they're assuming, and that turns into a lie because you just let their imagination run wild, and that's less than what the actual thing is, right? So take a lesser punishment and pretend they never found out about the other thing.
Yeah.
But there's also a trust there where it's like, I can't really trust you to handle the information that I need to give to you, because if I give this to you, you're going to freak out, right? Or you know, my family, we grew up very religious, right? LDS. And so there's certain things inside the LDS religion that if you do, they're horrific and, you know, heinous and, you know, things like that. And it actually forces you more into lie, right? And I actually see parents do this all the time, right? Where they take their kid and instead of you being an open book for them to rely on, right? And not have even a reaction almost. It's like, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out together. It's more like, well, no, I've got to punish you. And then they over punish, or they don't punish at all. And then they wait till things get out of control. And then bam, they have an overreaction on top of that. And it's just like, guys, you gotta be Switzerland, man. It's gotta be neutral.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You talk about, you know, obviously growing up LDS, both you and Michelle grew up as LDS. Did that help when you and Michelle came together, got married, and decided to start a family? Did it help both of you being LDS on the same page with the same beliefs, the same core values, coming forward to start a family? Was that a help to you? Do you think it would have been more, or should I say, do you think it would have been more difficult to start a family with somebody who wasn't LDS?
No, I don't think it would be more difficult if someone who was not LDS. Because a lot of the LDS standards are really vanilla.
Okay.
Right? They're really the same as anybody else, you know? I mean, a lot of, you know, especially Christian religions, I think most of their core tenets are all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, you know, don't have sex with people until you're married, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff. But to answer your kind of first question, yeah, it did help a lot because we didn't really have to discuss a lot on what our core tenet beliefs were. When we left the church, we had an opportunity to check those and really say, okay, what really matters to you?
Yeah.
You know, and there's a handful of things that Michelle and I do not agree on, right?
Yeah.
And we actually had one pop up the other day with my daughter Brea, my older daughter. My wife is concerned that she is very kind to people so that they are friendly back to her, right? Because Michelle wants Brea to feel love from her peers, right? And with what we were discussing, it's something that Brea would potentially attack somebody over because she's immature and doesn't understand really the way to handle that. And I'm like, no, let her blow it up. You know, and we do not agree on that.
Yeah.
And so when we had that conversation, we actually had it separately with Brea, both of us. And then because we're in opposition, we sat down and all three of us had a talk, right? And Michelle said the way that she felt, I said the way that I felt, and I explained to Brea that although I understand how her mom feels about this and agree at some level, I'm still supportive on what I think. And then I'm also leaving it up to her.
Yeah.
You know, at 13. And there's some things you do not leave up to your kids.
So you're letting Brea make the decision in that instance?
In that instance, yeah.
And she can, and as long as Brea understands Michelle's opinion and your opinion and Michelle's opinion, she can pick the best out of both of those opinions. And go, well, actually, I don't go lean all one way or lean all towards mom. I actually understand what mom's saying, and I like this bit of it, and I like this bit of what dad's saying, and I'm going to kind of meld those two together and move forward in that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
That's awesome. I love that. So when, you know, Brea's 13, you left the Mormon church around 13, 14 years ago. Did you leave right before you had children, or did you have Brea as you were leaving?
I started questioning the church when my wife got pregnant.
Okay.
And so before that, I had some things I didn't like. They weren't really making sense to me. But when I found out that Michelle was pregnant, I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a deep dive into this and really decide what I believe. And I'm going to check that box or I'm going to eliminate that box.
Gotcha.
And yeah, that's kind of where that happened. Now, really, by the time we left, like this is no longer part of our life, was actually the day that we blessed Nixon. It was actually about a month before we blessed Nixon. So it's probably when Michelle was pregnant with Nixon.
Okay.
So about 11 years ago.
So where do you bring your, apart from, you know, the values that you've brought through your childhood of being an LDS, what are your family values around religion now with the kids? Because obviously they're going to have questions. They've got friends who are still in the church. They're going to have friends who aren't in the church. They're going to have questions every day of, you know, grandparents that are still in the church and parents that are out of the church. Their minds are spinning about what is religion, which religion, you know, all these religions. And I honestly think it's one of the worst things we can do as society is not teach different religion.
Absolutely.
You know, when I was in school back in England, we had religious education, which was a class every week where we would spend time learning about Judaism and about Buddhism and about Christianity, and the kids in my class of all these different religions, and we learn a very broad stroke of every religion. We don't seem to do that now, and that leads to people not understanding different religions, not accepting different religions, and being very vocal against other religions that aren't theirs.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that with the kids? How do you broach that subject around religion?
So for us, it's really easy because religion and history are like interchangeable, right? A lot of the history we have is written by religious people. And so we started at Hinduism, teaching them about Hinduism. And they know a good overview of almost every religion, except for, little tiny sects, that have happened throughout the years, right? But like the major ones, they know all about them. They know about Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Christianity. They know why Christianity broke. They know why it split. They know why there's like 4,000 different, Christianity churches. Yeah.
Yeah.
They understand Islam, even Hare Krishnas. We've been talking about them recently because I was going to go to a Hare Krishna temple and then we're kind of talking to them about it. And, But the general overtone inside our home is we're non-religious. We don't subscribe to any religion, but there is a hope for another life after this and the acknowledgement of spirituality.
I love that. I love it. So I love that actually, that you kind of you've given them enough overview, quite honestly, for them to make their own decision. Like if they grow up later in life and turn and say, you know what, I actually want to be a Christian, I want to go to church, I want to believe in God, well, that's great, honey, go do that.
Yeah.
Right? Or, hey, I want to lean into, Islam. That's great. You do that. Whatever fulfills their need in their lives, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a funny thing too, because, we still have some family members, especially the grandparents, that influence them at some level, The problem is because we are so neutral at home, when people come at them with, let's just say Jesus, for example, right? To them, Jesus and Santa Claus are the same story, right? They're both two fictitious things that they don't really know that they happen. There's a little bit of evidence for both. There's history claims to both. They both come from different cultures and have survived through, hundreds and even thousands of years. And so it's really funny to listen to them like dissect this stuff, right? Yeah. So one example, which always cracks me up, right? My kids come home and they go, hey, Dad. I go, yeah, what's up? And they go, do you know Jesus bled from every pore? And I go, I've heard that. What do you think about that? I don't know, it's weird. Well, why is it weird? And this is actually Nixon I was talking to this about, right? He goes, why did you bleed? Why do you have to bleed? I go, who told you that? And he goes, well, Grandma. I said, oh, interesting. You should ask her why. And he goes, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then he never, I don't think he ever did, right? Because they don't want to upset their grandma, right? And they probably don't give a shit, to be quite frank.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're just like, whatever, then they're with grandma, not really thinking about it. But then he brought it up again, right? And he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about this, Jesus bleeding thing, right? And I go, well, what does that mean he bled from every pore? And he was like, well, did he bleed from his butt? And I was like, every piece of skin has a pore. But but if you look at the way that they're critically thinking about what they've been told, now they have no context. If you say atonement to them, that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. In fact, they don't really get that people sin either, right? Because we're not teaching shame in our home. It's one of our tenets, I guess, is we're not going to teach them shame. I'm not going to have my kids grow up under any amount of shame for what they do, right? If they do something wrong, they will fix it and they will move on in life, right? And so when people say these statements to them that have something to do with Christianity, and if they were around, people from Islam or Buddhism, right, they would hear the same kind of things, right? They're just totally out of context. Yeah. And so I sit back and kind of laugh because I think, well, you're just doing, like, to the adults that are trying to, persuade them one way or the other, I just laugh. I'm like, you're just doing this to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to critically think out of this so fast that it doesn't matter what you say. Yeah. Another term they hear all the time is, Jesus is your brother. And they're like,
is that a very LDS Mormon statement?
I don't know. I mean, it is a very Mormon statement. Okay. I don't know if that applies across Christianity broadly, Okay. I mean, but I don't know. Yeah. He's the Son of God, right? But I mean, some different religions think that they're all one, the Trinity, and then some the LDS religion definitely thinks of them as two different personages. Okay. But I go, yeah, I guess if he really does, you know, and then they just kind of like, yeah. And then boom, they're off to the next thing, right? Because it's like, you know, and me, I'm not going to steer them either way. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to let them critically think through it. And I get really proud the more they actually critically think through things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love, you know, our daughters, Lily and Anna, being, you know, critical thinkers. You know, you give them a little bit of information. I really love when they get a little bit of information, they hear something, and then they go away and do their own research, and then they come back and they're like, hey, you know, I watched this documentary on, you know, Lily loves Egypt, and she'll come up with all these things. You know, did you know that this, and this? And I'm like, actually, I did. And she's like, really? And then we go down a whole deep dive of, like, you know, Egyptology. I love the fact that they're exploring their own minds. It's not something that we push. You know, sure, they may watch, you know, me watching an Egypt documentary and catch like 5 or 10 minutes of it, and it piques their interest, and they go away and do their own research and come back, and they thrive on it. But there's also a lot of other things that I like that I'm not going to push the kids to enjoy, because, you know, and I've said to them, I was like, I don't want to watch the crap on TikTok that you watch. I don't enjoy that. I'm not going to force you to watch what I watch. But if we find something we commonly bond over, like, you know, Lily and I love Dude Perfect. We've been watching that thing for like 2 years now, and that's our thing that we love of it. It's dumb, it's stupid, it's clean, it's just enjoyable. But that's our thing. Leaning, you know, moving into like things we enjoy with our kids. Obviously, very successful business owner. You own multiple businesses. You know, you're the president of multiple companies. How do you, you know, with the workload that you have, which you have a workload, you travel, you're always go. How do you balance your work and family life in the way that you do that? You are such a good dad, because when I see you with your kids, you are present. I don't ever feel like your kids have missed out on anything with you because of your work. And, you know, and again, with us being like part of We Are the Day, we were in Spain for 2 weeks and we've come back. And how do you balance that? How do you make that fine-tuned balance?
I haven't always. Man, there's a lot of things inside there that I'm thinking. Number one, I don't, and you know this about me, I don't always feel like a good dad.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a man striving to be a good dad, and we all feel that way at some level or in moments. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm a bad dad. This is not a yes or a no thing, right? I think it's more of a spectrum, right? I always feel like I could do better, I could be better, but I feel like time is such a thief, right?
Oh yeah.
And I have a hard time, right? Like seeing my kids grow up. And I think I posted on social media the other day, right? I was like, greatest thing about life, watching your kids grow up. Worst thing about life,
watching your kids grow up. Well, you said that last night on the way home. We were talking about something, you know, like, oh man. You know, we went to watch Brea's performance last night. You know, she had this beautiful performance, and it was up in Salt Lake, and she just rocked. And you and I got in the truck afterwards, and you're like, oh man, I can't believe she's grown up so fast. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't she grown up so beautiful? Like, she just rocked that performance.
Yeah.
And she did. And you're absolutely right. Like, watching them grow is painful.
Yeah.
Because you just want them to be little kids and, you know, cuddle into your lap and cuddle with you. And, you know, you don't want that to end.
No, never. And the thing too, I mean, to answer your question at the start, it's like, I have a really good balance now. When they were younger, I didn't. I worked a lot. I was basically like not a single dad, or I was like a weekend dad.
Gotcha.
You know, I worked a lot during the week. I worked long hours. I was gone a lot. I traveled a lot. And looking back, it's hard, right? Because some of it was unnecessary. But in the time, I didn't realize that. I never did anything thinking like, oh, I need a break from my kids or my wife. I'm going to go do this business trip, and I'm going to make this thing happen. You know, it was never anything like that. It was more like, I feel like I'm doing the best thing that I possibly can. But now that I'm older and wiser, like everybody, right? I'm not some special dude, but you look back and you go, oh, I've wasted a lot of time doing that. You know, especially starting in businesses that failed and didn't work and didn't make quite as much money as I wanted, and were just total waste of time. Like, it was always time away from my family. Yeah. Now that I'm 41, you know, and I look at my life and I think, there's some really good things about my life. And I've done some really, really good things with my kids, you know. My kids, they adore me. Oh. You know, and it's...
Anybody that knows you and knows your family knows that instantly. Yeah. You walk into your house, it is full of love. Yeah. Like, the first thing you see when you walk through your front door is a giant, like 6 foot by 3 foot picture of you and your family on the wall, right next to your front door. You know, you have this beautiful... kind of corkboard in your kitchen that's probably got like 150 pictures printed out, or you know, whatever pinned to that board. Like, it is your home is your family. Yeah. Right. It truly is, and that's, you know, I love that. We're kind of the same way, right? That's our
absolutely
our home is our family home. Yeah. what do you do now, with the workload, being the president of all these companies? What's your routine now where you maximize the amount of time with the kids every day?
So I'm going to the gym with my wife in the morning, which I've been doing that now for on and off for, better of 6 months, right? So we get up pretty early. Sometimes we get up at 5:30 or 6. Try and get home before the kids wake up, and then I spend about an hour and a half with them before I actually go to work. So I don't actually go to work until I'm not in there before 9 o'clock almost any day unless I have to be, right? And now I'm starting to try and leave work at 4.
Okay.
And so for the last 5 years, I've stayed up with my kids in the morning, right? And then I'll work till 7, 8, 9, or 10 o'clock at night. It's normally, I stay there till it's done. But I've also realized recently, a little bit through We Are the They, actually, is one of the gifts that I've had through We Are the They, is it's like I am not delegating and I am not managing my time properly, right? And so I've started delegating a lot of stuff off of my plate, right? Which is actually, I should have done it a long time ago. A lot of people look at me like this amazing manager or whatever, and it's like, no, I've had some stupid managerial moments in my life where I was a terrible manager. And yeah, I just try and spend as much time with them as I possibly can. And my kids they love to jump on the tramp. I mean, I go outside and just lay on the tramp sometimes with them, and they just bounce over top of me and beat the hell out of me, right? For 30, 40 minutes. And it's just, I don't know, I just try and be in their orbit.
Yeah. And I've seen that, this past week, we spent the week with you, and you get up every morning, you cook breakfast for the kids, you're making, French toast for Harper, you're making eggs for Nixon. Like, it's not like you literally are like a line cook. It's like, okay, kids, what do you want? You want this, you want this, you want this, great, I'll make it all.
Plus having your kids there, I love it too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, our kids love Uncle Mark. It's like, Uncle Mark. I'm like, hey, I'm here too, guys. Like, oh yeah, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you something you don't know about to this morning, right? So we went to the gym. Matt didn't sleep well last night, so we let Matt sleep in. So one of our other friends, Josh, is with us, right? So Josh and me and Michelle go to the gym, and I'm there for 15 minutes. I get a text from Anna, and she's just like, "Where are you?" Right? And I like teasing her a little bit, right? So I send her my location, because it says send current location. I pop her that, and she goes, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Where's Michelle?" I'm like, "Michelle's right with me." And I'm like, "Are your parents not there?" And so it just cracks me up. I'm like, hey, I'll be home in a minute. We'll do breakfast. She's just like, okay, great. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, I love that, man. I get a little random text from Lily and Anna, here and there. And only with Lily, it's funny. She'll give me a hi. So I'll hit her back. Hey, what's up? Might be an hour later. She's like, oh, nothing. Like, okay.
Honestly, they love you guys. And that's, that's the beautiful thing about our families. We just love the crap out of each other's families. I took Mark and Michelle's kids yesterday. We kind of, Andrea had a business day, you had a business day, and Michelle had an appointment. So I took the kids to the aquarium, and Brea was at camp, so it was just the 4 kids, Nixon, Harper, Anna, and Lee, just took it to the aquarium. And on the way there, Harper was like, okay, we've made a decision. We're going to call you Dad while we're at the aquarium. I'm like, love it. Yeah. Let's go. So for the 2 hours at the aquarium, Nixon and Harper were running around and go, Dad. I'm like, okay, which one of my kids is that? I'm like, okay, it's a male voice. Okay, it's got to be Nixon. I've got 3 girls and 1 boy. But it was beautiful. We had the most amazing time. They were calling me Dad. We were laughing and joking. Like, it just fills your cup, right? And just seeing them, Harper's her own little thing. She's like, I just want to see the sharks. Nixon's like, I want to touch every fish. Lily wants to read everything about every fish and know everything about it. And Anna just wants to do whatever Nixon does. Yeah. So it's just seeing their dynamics is just amazing. What things do you do to put into place that, what's your bonding moments with each kid? Because each one of your kids is completely different. Yeah. Right? Brea is very much, from what I've noticed, she likes to isolate. She likes to watch movies. She likes to play video games. She likes to be in her own space. Nixon just likes to beat the crap out of you with whatever he can, whether it's a plastic sword or slingshot. He just wants to fight you and just be in your space. And then Harper's a cuddler. Yeah. So what is it you put into place?
You're pretty dead on that, yeah. Right? So Brea, I always ask Brea what she's thinking. What's new in her world, what ideas does she have, right? That's the best way to bond with Brea, because she has tons and she loves sharing it with people that she likes, right? If someone tries that off the street, she won't even answer you. My kids actually speak in sound. We were joking about this the other day because our friend Josh, his lovely wife Carissa, she talks in sounds every now and again too. And I'm like, hey, you get along with my kids, just like, there's all this stuff. And I'm like, what the heck?
Like bop it.
Yeah. And so Brea, I answered that, and I cuddle Brea a lot too. I just put my arm around her, and she's 13 now. She's becoming older, and I can freaking feel those moments going away, right? I mean, I don't know what age you stop cuddling with your daughters, but
never.
Hopefully never.
I asked my kids, I was like, will you ever stop hugging me? They're like, no. I'm like, please don't.
Well, that's good. That's really good.
I really do, because like, Lily's 13. There's that kind of, you see that transition. You go to hug her, and it's kind of like a sideways hug. It's not front on anymore. You go to kiss her, and she kind of leans her head towards you, so you kiss the top of her head. Yeah. Whereas Anna still wants to be kissed on the lips or on the cheeks, whatever. Yeah. And I just said, I'm like, never stop hugging. I was like, even if it's just a quick hug, just your old man needs a hug.
Exactly. We dap. Yeah. If anyone listening to this and you're a kid, go hug your dad.
Seriously.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Please, because dads love hugs. We really do.
But yeah, I hug my kids every morning, right? And you see that at the house, right? Like every morning they come give me a hug, doesn't matter where I'm at, and they'll come mob me and hang on me a little bit. And then every time I come home from work, they give me a hug. Before I leave to work, they give me a hug. And before they go to bed, when I'm there, I give them a hug. Mm-hmm. And I give Bray a kiss in the cheek. I give Nixon, I don't know, I'll either punch him or give him a kiss. Depends on what mood I'm in, right? Or a little slap, just like really real gentle stuff, obviously. And then Harper, she loves kisses on the lips. She's 7, and she just like wants to just
and that's
hang
healthy.
on me. Yeah, for sure.
So I have seen this time and time again in social media, and I'm sure people that listen have probably seen it too. David Beckham was called out a year or two ago. There was a picture of him at an event where he kissed his daughter, who's also named Harper 7. He kissed her on the lips, and the world went nuts. David Beckham kissing his daughter on the lips. That's inappropriate. Blah 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 blah. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I will kiss my kids on the lips. Yeah. I do with Anna. Lily's a little different now. She's kind of grown out of that. And like I said, it's a kiss on the forehead or a kiss on the cheek, whatever. But with Anna, she will slap bang you one right on the lips. And I'm like, I don't care. It's healthy. It's beautiful. She's my daughter. I'm
with you. I have a rule. Everyone should subscribe to this. The world is stupid.
Yes.
Anytime you get more than 4 people together, they're generally stupid.
Yeah. Holding hands with your kids. Kissing your kids on the I love holding hands with my kids. And now, I'm like you. I got giant paws, right?
Yeah.
So normally it's a finger, or they'll hold a thumb, or they'll try and hold a hand, but it just, I feel like I'm crushing the hand. I love holding hands with my kids. I love holding hands with my wife. I don't care if my kids kiss me on the lips and they do it in public. I will kiss my kids on the lips.
Oh, absolutely.
Until the point where they're like, okay, Dad, it's a little weird. I'm 21 now. Let's stop. You know what I mean?
Fair, man. Yeah.
They're my kids. It's how I show them love.
I think I'll hit my girls on the cheek with a kiss forever. For sure.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
For sure. And then Nixon, man, I don't know. I hope me and him, by the time he's 25, 26, I am just his best friend. I want to be that with all my kids, really. Mm-hmm. In my view, parents have cycles, right? You protect them and keep them safe and let the mom take care of them when they're little, right? Yeah. Not that you're absent, right? But that's what's going on, right? And then as they start getting into adolescence and young teenage years, right, like you've got their back and you're just there to let them fail and pick them up and teach them and move them through this life, right? By the time they get 16, 17, 18, 19, and whatever the kid's ready for, you're teaching them to interact with the world and make their own money and be able to make their own decisions and drive their own car. And if I died in a car wreck, they're fine, right? And then you got to refine that. So you refine the social side of that, right, to where they're very good inside the community and their understanding of how people interact with each other is at a very, very high level. And I've pegged that to be somewhere around the age of 25, right?
Got it.
Might go to 30, might be as early as 21. I don't know. Each kid's different, right? Everyone's going to learn at a different pace. When I feel that they're there, I'm in. Mm-hmm. We're friends now. You just come in and maybe a little bit of a mentor, right? If that's how you want to see me. But I just want to be friends. I want them to call me up. I want to go to games. I want to go do this with them. I want to go see a movie with them. I just want to be like best freaking friends.
That's the way I am.
And if I if I leave this life that way, then I did it the way that I wanted to.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the same page. I want to be best friends with my kids. I want to always be their parent. If shit hits the fan, no matter whether they're 20, 30, 40, whatever, they can call me and I'll always be in the parental role. I will sit down as your dad and I will talk to you and I will listen and I'll help you and understand. But I also want to be your best friend.
Yeah.
When the time's right.
Yeah.
I want you to be like, hey, Dad, let's go do brunch every Saturday, or let's go do brunch once a Saturday and let's just catch up and be in each other's lives. Great. I want to, let's go watch a game or whatever. Like, I just want to, I would love to be at that point where it's Super Bowl and my daughters are sat either side of me and we're drinking a beer or whatever it is and just enjoying each other's space.
Yeah.
But I also never want to stop being their parent.
Yeah.
If, whether it's boys and heartbreak or work and heartbreak, like I want to be there that they can call me and they can just cry on my shoulder and just be like, I just need my dad for a moment. Well, I'm
exactly. Yeah. And that's where I see the mentor role when I say mentor. Yeah.
It's just, if
you need me for that, great. If not, let's be best friends,
So difficult question.
We'll see.
It's like there's nothing difficult in my life. What do you think is your biggest failure as a parent?
My biggest failure as a parent, every time I don't take an opportunity when I'm lazy. So if I'm at work and I can leave and I know something's going on and I don't quite get there in time, that's on me, which I pay for in my mind, it's a funny thing. I actually don't fail that often anymore. There's been times in my life where I'm like, I could come home and deal with this and I could put the kids to bed if I needed to, but really I'll just pound out some more work and that'll free me up for later. So my biggest failure is every opportunity I left in the past that I didn't choose my children over something else.
I hear you on that. I've done things with work, last year, for instance, Andrea took the girls down to Mexico with her mom, their grandma, their Mimi, for a week in Mexico on vacation. I stayed at home and I worked because I was like, oh man, if I take a week off now, when you own your own business, you got to keep that ball rolling, right? Otherwise, once it stops, it's really hard to get that traction going again. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? It's a week in Mexico. You just go. I'll stay home. I'll work. I'll look after the dog. Halfway through that week, I was like, shit, I really wish I'd just gone on that vacation. It was like that, Andrea's sending me pictures of the girls parasailing, getting their hair braided on the beach, getting their hair dyed, and I'm like, I'm missing every one of those memories. And then when the kids came home, they were like, oh, Dad, I really wish you were there to have seen us done this. And I'm like, oh, God, it just cemented that. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's 1 week out of 52. Just take the freaking week off and go do it right.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the biggest failures that looking back on myself is like, just like you, there's times where I've like, it's the kids, it's a bedtime. I'll tuck them in tomorrow. I'll stay at work. And, it's one bedtime to you, but it's a much bigger thing for them, right? It's that cuddle time. It's that reading a book, reading a story, whatever, that they cherish and miss. Whereas to us, it's like, there'll be plenty more. Well, there really won't, because bedtimes run out real quick. Yeah. Those story times run out real quick. What's your biggest achievement as a parent, besides having kids and raising great kids? What makes you, like, if you were to write something on paper, my proudest moment as a parent, what is it?
Gosh, I don't know if there's one moment directly with my kids where I'm just like, boom, I got it right. Because I don't think that comes for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Probably the proudest thing where I'm most proud of what I've done is people have acknowledged me a lot, frequently, for being a good parent. A lot of people come to me for advice about parenting, right? And I think it's because they see the relationship I have with my kids, and there's a little bit of contrast with them. So they're trying to like, well, what did you do with this? Or why did you look at it this way? Or like, it's not like a daily thing or anything like that, but maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year, someone will be like, hey, mind if I sit down and like really ask you about like your parenting style, that makes me feel good, right? I mean, it's kind of like anyone, if someone comes to you because they view you as an expert, but then it also comes with some responsibility to be like, oh crap, I got to check myself. Am I really as good as people think I am? You know what I mean?
I hope this advice sits well with these folks. Oh shit.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I mean, we did it at that last Ludus we were at, a mastermind meeting, someone asked about parenting, Kate Johnson did. And I said, it's really easy, man. Like, you do not allow your kids to do anything that you don't like, right? You don't let your kids become something that you don't like. So if you have a kid that does something that drives you nuts, you got to dive in. Mm-hmm. You got to fix that, right? And the reason why is, and it's a Jordan Peterson thing. I didn't come up with that. I've always kind of felt that way, but then when Jordan Peterson defined it, I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the definition of what I've thought.
Because they are a true representation of you.
Well, not even that. I want them to, like, if you're a little shithead kid, right? There's shithead kids out there, right? Mm-hmm. You don't allow your kid to do that. If your kid's lying to like his friends, or they're just a pain in the ass to be around, or they're just always disobeying you. You know what I mean? Like that little kid that like the parents are just like, get out of my face, right? Mm-hmm. You do not allow your kid to be that way.
Yeah.
Because then he'll become that person over and over and over, he or she, and they'll never really, their peers won't get it. They'll become someone that people don't want to be around. And the manifestation of that is, if you have a kid who doesn't have any peer group friends or can't keep friends, right, because of their behavior, right, that is a manifestation of, oh, there's something going wrong here. Yeah. And that's the backside of what Jordan Peterson said, right? And that's really what that definition really locked into me, right, is because if there's parents who are just like, I can't stand being around that kid, right? Because parents are not, very few parents are going to like harp on your kid, right? Unless you're doing something, imminent. most of the time you just say, I'm just going to disassociate myself with this kid because I can't stand being around the kid. And then that, 4, 5, 6, 7, even 15-year-old doesn't get it. And then they go through their whole life and, they get this chip and they're, oh, everyone treats me different, blah,
and then
blah,
wonder
blah.
what's wrong.
Yeah, and they wonder what's wrong.
Why does nobody like me? Why does no one want to hang around with me? Well, look in the mirror.
Well, actually look right at your parents. Because your parents mother freaking failed you.
That's actually very true.
But that takes massive self-awareness and a lot of real mental strength later on to go back and go like, wait, when I was a kid, I was a terror, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. It's a little epiphany moment, right? Then it's like, you got to look at your parents and go, why did you let me be like that? Yeah. It's just, I mean, my gosh, the maturity and wisdom in that at the end is almost unachievable for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up, you actually do this on your podcast, which I actually absolutely love, which is
cool.
2 minutes of world advice, right? Or 2 minutes of the best life advice. What's your 2 minutes of best parenting advice? You've got a 13-year-old, you've got an 11-year-old, you've got a 7-year-old, you're a business owner, you're a family man. Yeah. What's the best 2 minutes of advice to people listening out there that are potentially in the same boat as you, right? They're business owners, they have young kids. Give me your best 2 minutes of advice.
All right. This is advice I've given a lot. Okay. You want your kids to know in their heart that you love your wife or your spouse, right? Why am I getting emotional?
But I love it. Oh my God, Mark McCormack's vulnerable up in here.
So vulnerable. I'm gonna cold plunge after this. Yo, watch yourself. I'm gonna cold plunge that vulnerability right out of me. No, but honestly, I want, if there's something in this world people know about me, is I love my wife, right? And I want my kids to know, dude, my dad, freak that dude, loved my mom. Yeah. He was there for my mom. He just, he worshiped the ground she walked on. And they were freaking equals. The way that they walk through this world was being equal, right? Now, the other stuff I normally say is don't let kids do anything that you don't like about them. Make sure your kids are behaving well with friends and they're being able to have friends and able to interact with the world. But we already went over that. But really, I mean, not even 2 minutes, man. The most important thing is to love your spouse. And there's a lot of things with that. We've been, some things have happened in our world that we've been able to observe recently. And it's just guys, love your wife, and wives, love your husband. Your words matter. The way you speak about your spouse, the way you treat your spouse, the way you talk about your spouse when they're not there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very, very important to the family unit. And, you want your kids when they're 25, 30 to want to be around you. You do. Your life will be void and empty. And a lot of that has to come down with you know what, man, even if your parents your kids look back and you go, yeah, we struggled and there was crap going on and just weird things happened. But you know what? Freak, my dad loved my mom. That's the best advice I can give to people.
I love that, dude. You are truly one of the greatest fathers I know. I'm very proud and honored to call you my friend and also a father. And thank you for taking the time to be here, dude.
No, thanks for having me on, dude. I've been waiting for you to get this podcast rolling, dude. You're going to be perfect.
Well, it's rolling.
Yeah, we're live.
All right, mate. Thank you, pal.
Thank you.